A Sky Marshal is a covert law enforcement or counter-terrorist agent on board a commercial aircraft to counter aircraft hijackings. Sky Marshals may be provided by airlines such as El Al, or by government agencies such as the Austrian Einsatzkommando Cobra, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, German Federal Police, National Security Guard in India, Metropolitan Police SO18, a U.S. Federal Air Marshal Service. History. The history of in-flight security began in March 1962 with the Federal Aviation Administration program to combat hijackings. During 1962, there were a rash of hijackings to Cuba. In response, the Federal Aviation Administration created the title of FAA Peace Officer. FAA peace officers were the first people to ever provide armed security on board commercial aircraft. The original 18 in-flight security officers, currently known worldwide as IFSOs, were the predecessor to all current in-flight security programs that exist today. Australia. In response to the September 11th incidents, the Commonwealth instituted an Air Security Officer program under the Australian Federal Police in December 2001. These officers are generally referred to in the media as Sky Marshals. The ASO program provides a discreet anti-hijacking capability for Australian civil aviation by providing armed security personnel on board aircraft. This involves both random and intelligence-led placement of armed ASOs on flights operated by Australian registered air carriers. On both domestic and international flights, officers are armed and trained and equipped for a variety of situations on both domestic and international flights. Austria. In Austria, armed air marshals are provided since 1981 by the Einsatzkommando Cobra. Canada. The Canadian Air Carrier Protective Program began on September 17, 2002 when a Memorandum of Understanding was signed between the Royal Canadian Mounted Police with Transport Canada, the authority responsible for Canadian aviation security, and the Canadian Air Transport Security Authority, for the implementation and administration of the CACPP. The program is conducted by specially trained undercover, armed RCMP officers on selected domestic and international flights and all flights to the Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. Pilots and flight attendants are advised of the presence and the officer will physically intervene should an unauthorized person attempt to gain control of an aircraft. APOs, however, will not be involved in controlling unruly passengers. While they are peace officers within Canadian territories, they rely on Section 6 of the Tokyo Convention as a legal basis for intervening an incident outside of Canadian airspace. By law, such officers are exempt from acquiring a permit for importing or exporting the duty firearms when crossing the border. However, the exact nature of the weaponry is not released to the public except they are deadly and effective and should not damage the aircraft. The Canadian Forces Military Police members of the Canadian Forces Air Marshal Detail are responsible for providing security to Canadian Forces aircraft, crew and passengers. Passengers who may include the Governor-General, the Prime Minister and members of the royal family. India. Months after the September 11th attacks, private operators like Jet Airways and Air Sahara introduced Sky Marshals in some of their flights and had plans to increase it. Indian Airlines had previously started this in December 1999 after the hijacking of Indian Airlines Flight 814. In 2003, Air India had an agreement with a U.S. directive to have air marshals on all of its U.S.-bound flights. They are recruited from India's elite commando force National Security Guard. Ireland does not have a dedicated Sky Marshal agency, although there is a National Civil Aviation Security Committee. Limited capabilities are provided by the Garda Síochána Emergency Response Unit, the National Police Armed Tactical Unit, and backup may be provided by the Counter-Terrorism Garda Special Detective Unit and the Army Ranger Wing Special Forces Unit in certain situations. The Irish government allows armed flight marshals from the United Kingdom, United States, Canada, Israel, Australia and specific European Union countries on board international flights landing from a destined for those countries in Irish airspace, once they are informed of the presence beforehand. Weapons carried by an air marshal in Ireland include a concealed handgun, taser, knife and pepper spray. Singapore Airlines and Silk Air deploys Sky Marshals in the flights. Such members are armed with firearms loaded with special ammunition and dart-firing stun gun. Members are usually from either the Air Marshal Unit, the Security Command, or the Special Tactics and Rescue of the Singapore Police Force. Members have undergone extensive training to enable them to operate effectively within the confines of an aircraft. United Kingdom Sky Marshals are rarely used on flights originating from the UK. Officers from the Metropolitan Police Service Aviation Security Operational Command Unit are used on random flights. However, details of the program are not made public and the extent of the use is not widely known. For this reason, the use is not heavily documented in the media. United States. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration began its Sky Marshal program in 1968, which eventually became the FAA Federal Air Marshal Program in 1982. The program later became the Federal Air Marshal Service in January 2002 and, after the handover of FAA security duties to the Transportation Security Administration, in 2005, Rigoberto Alpizar was shot dead by two Sky Marshals on a jetway at Miami International Airport. Currently, Federal Air Marshal officers are under the Transportation Security Administration, under the Visible Intermodal Prevention Response System, started up circa 2005. FAMs began to patrol non-aviation sites like bus terminals and train stations.